This is going to be a special episode. We are going to do a real rewind. We're going to cover the movie Selena. We're going to talk about the depiction of her story being told and the impact the movie made and how it's still relevant today. All that and more in episode 26 of the Reel-ists Podcast. Team Reel-ists, welcome back. This is Oscar.
Welcome back. This is Donnie. I'm not the only one that says welcome back.
But I threw in Team Reel-ists. It's different. And we have our producer, Ruben, here as well.
Hello.
And today is a real rewind. Just due to some conflicting schedules, we had to switch it up a little bit.
Dang, you ain't got to say all that, Oscar.
Why not?
Our business.
It's explaining why we're doing it. But the movie we chose is a movie we love to talk about. Okay, calm down, guys. Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe they're just asking why are you guys doing a real rewind this week?
Because Selena, the anniversary of Selena
it's the
passed.
schedule.
Not like, oh, we had no other option, guys. So we just picked a random movie.
I didn't even say that. All I said was due to us unable to see another new release that we normally would do, as we do 2 episodes each week.
Well, I will say I did want to do this for a long time. And
yes, that's true.
We always have movies we want to talk about, so it's not like we run out of ideas and we have nothing else to say. But we are choosing a movie that, like I said, we all enjoy, so that's gonna be exciting. Selena.
The
movie came out in 1997.
Selena está aquí.
That was not an audio clip, guys.
I just had to quote that. Sorry.
That was a live.
Remember, just a random memory when you and me and I think your sister and your mom were in their car. We were driving somewhere in Vallejo and we were talking about that scene.
Yeah.
And like your mom was saying, we were discussing what the line was, like what the words of that line were.
I do.
And it was like
I don't know. We were like exiting the freeway. And
we were like going
exactly to my house. Yeah.
Yeah. I every time I hear that line, I don't know why it always puts me in that memory of like you, me, Priscilla, and your mom in the car. Just random. I want to throw that out there. Shout out to Priscilla and Oscar's mom if you're listening.
Hi, Mom. Hi, sister. So yes, Selena came out in 1997. For a second, I was like, oh shoot, that's not the right date. But yes, I don't know exactly what the month and day. I should have probably looked that up.
I think it was this month.
It was this month.
Yeah, it was March.
Okay, Ruben got this. See, Ruben has this all
on
down.
Instagram too. I mean, Donnie even saw it. Just saying.
Ooh, spotlight. Now I do want to just start off this movie and just saying that we're just gonna talk about it differently than we do our other reviews. As you remember, we had another real rewind for The Sandlot.
Yeah, we did.
So these are special episodes. These aren't more so of us looking at the film and talking about our favorite scenes and all that. We will have those things, obviously, because they're great movies, but just want to mention that. Check out our other Real Rewind, always The Sandlot. I'm sure that's another favorite of ours.
Oh, yeah.
Don't miss it. I do also want to do some little housekeeping. Not now. Come later. But we want to just have a general question we want to ask all our listeners. How do you guys listen to the Reel-ists Podcast? What is your source? Is it iTunes? Is it Spotify, Google Play, YouTube,
Stitcher,
SoundCloud, our
or
website?
Do you go to our website directly, thereelistspodcast.libsyn.com? We'd like to know. Shoot us your answer and let us know.
We would. So any of the social medias we have, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Team Reel-ists, Team REELISTS, no dash. We just want to know for our own personal sake, not necessarily that we're going to remove all the other options or anything like that.
Just for data configuration.
There you go. Sure.
It would greatly help us out. Please let us know, guys. It would really help us out. And our producer, Ruben, would greatly appreciate it, right?
Yes,
right, producer?
Yes, please.
So, let's get into this movie, guys. Are you guys ready for this?
Get into it.
All right. I want to start off by simply asking this question. What about the movie stands out? Like, why do you always look back in and enjoy it? I'm sure like the answer's going to be very similar, but I just want to know. Let's just start it out. Let's open up to that question. My answer, because you guys are getting that answered already,
Take a breath.
is essentially I enjoyed the music. I listened to the music first before seeing her movie. So I really do like her songs. You know, there are a lot of songs that I sing along when I hear them. Don't call me out on the names. I don't know them from the top of my head. I know one, Como La Flor.
Okay.
Beady Beady Bomb Bomb. That's another one, right?
Yeah.
Let's see
For two.
Let's see what else. That was the one with the moon. Oh man. But essentially the point is her music is amazing. Hands down. Awesome songs. I want to sing them now, but I don't know if we have rights to. But that's why I got interested in watching this movie, and to seeing her and how those songs came about is what gets me every time in remembering this movie, was just those songs and her life of how these songs came to be. Definitely different. Her story is very interesting, but that's my reasoning. Is just her music is what pulled me to this movie, and that's why I always think of the movie and the music in one.
Okay. Man, that's a hard question. This movie, I seen it when I was maybe like 7 or 8. Didn't know who Jennifer Lopez was at the time, which is crazy because like probably like a year or two later, I was like became a really big J-Lo fan. And
it was because of the movie, right?
No, it wasn't.
No?
It was because of her music, and I thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world. I still think she is.
So was it? You found out J-Lo's music.
I was a fan of J-Lo, and then somebody was like, "Oh yeah, she was in Selena," and I was like,
"Okay,
what?" And then I went back and watched Selena, and I was like, "How did I not put 2 and 2 together?"
So you have a J-Lo roots to this movie,
kind of, yeah. But the film itself is just, I just love it. I'm all about seeing how we got from point A to point B, and like all the steps, all the details, everything in between. And this movie takes you right to the roots, takes you to her father, from he was young, and then takes you like, on a timeline to where we got to know who this amazing, talented superstar Selena was. And then, obviously at the end, her kind of, not her demise, it was, her tragic ending.
Yeah.
But I think the film just itself was
so many fun, memorable lines too. I mean, like it's kind of similar to Sandlot, where we just have so many lines that we just remember. It just stands out. Like we say like that line that you said earlier about Selena Saki, all those in addition to her songs too. So it's like a lot of things that we just remember.
I think it's also too like the film. Like the characters are just, at least from my perspective, like it just seems like they're all so relatable. Like, yeah, they're like they became like Selena y los Dinos, and and like they blew up in like Mexico or Latin America. I don't know if I'm saying this right. The Spanish speaking community,
America.
The Latin community. But and even though they got to like these great heights, it's like it still seems like they were just relatable, and like you could just hang out with them, or like in the scenes where they're not performing, where they're just like on the tour bus and they're just eating pizza, or they're goofing around. Like it there's a level of relatableness there, and likability, at least for me. And it always kind of made me slightly wish I was like, oh, I wish I could be with a part of that family, because it just, you sensed like there was so much love there. And that was I think that's what really like drew me to it as a kid.
Was it the song called "Dreaming of You"?
Yeah,
yes.
The one you were referring to.
Okay. The moon, right? Because I was thinking about that.
Oh yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify that. I was trying to make sure like no one is gonna like hate me because they didn't know the song. I knew it, guys. I was on the spot. Ruben, what about you?
Well, I'm the resident Selena expert here.
Yeah.
President of the fan club.
Selenologist.
That'd be cool if I had that.
Put that on the resume. Just put it.
That's actually a good idea. Get some jobs that way. So to me, the reason why I like this movie so much is because I was a Selena fan before she passed away. My dad used to play her music all the time. Like I remember like when we were kids, like he'd be like making us breakfast, and me and my sister would just be like in the in the living room, just like jumping around, music playing in the background. So to me, the way I take this movie is kind of like I enjoy it because it's kind of like a representation of that, and I enjoy that it's something that it serves to other people like as reference. Like it's able to get other people, make the story known to other people, and I think that's kind of how I appreciate it, because it's kind of like a representation of that time that I enjoyed. So that's kind of the take I take on it, because I love the movie and everything, but I primarily liked Selena as an artist, and then this is just kind of like what happened afterwards that kind of kept the legacy going, which I'm all for.
Okay. I guess our starting point here would be who played her. Jennifer Lopez, as we just said, no surprise. Did you guys enjoy her performance? Were you guys, was there anything that was like, that's not accurate, or, that became a thing because Jennifer Lopez performances or anything like that?
I'll answer first because I know Ruben is going to have a lot to say about this. Obviously, I'm biased because, like I said, I loved Jennifer Lopez for so long. She was my love, mi amor. I think she did a really great job. I think she was very qualified to play Selena, only because whoever they were going to cast, they always wanted to use Selena's singing voice in the film. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So they were never going to have anyone come in and sing. Mm-hmm. So that didn't really matter. It was mostly about the performance aspect. A lot of it was about the performance aspect. Can she move like Selena? Can she hit those marks like Selena? Can she bring that energy and that charisma to the stage like Selena? And get, and I think, obviously, I mean, if we're getting technical, like Jennifer Lopez has an extensive dance background, and she, obviously she can move, she can dance. And I think she, from what I've known from like interviews, she like went down and spent time with the family, and watched old movies and home videos of her. So she really did I feel like she really did her homework with the character, and she really like treated it with like care and respect, and like nurtured it, and really wanted to be as authentic as she could be. So I thought she did really, really good. And one of the things, even still to this day, I swear I'm not kidding, but like sometimes I'll be watching Selena and I will forget sometimes throughout the film that it's Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
And I think that speaks a lot to the performance. So
a combination of the performance and the set designer's costume.
Yeah,
like,
the costume. Yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously, like the makeup,
there are times
and the hair
when I remember
when
I first saw it, and then I would see like real live clips of her performance, and I was like, oh, this is from the movie. No, that's actual. And I'm like, oh, it looks very well done.
Yeah,
and she did a great job in mimicking Selena in a good way.
Me. Okay.
Throwing it to our Selena expert.
No, I agree. She was definitely very authentic. Like, that is one part that I do appreciate a lot about it. But something I do appreciate about that movie is that it was very accurate as far as her portrayal. And like Donnie was saying, it's like she did her homework, and that's what's nice about it, was that you could look at it and be like, oh, that was a good movie, but there's these differences between the real life person and the movie, and I feel like you can watch that movie alone and still get a very good sense of who Selena was as a person and as a performer every way. She really just embodied everything. So her performance was honestly, it was, I can't even imagine anybody else that could have done that.
Well, speaking of that, as you mentioned that, I'm not the one with this fun fact. She was not the first choice to get the opportunity to play Selena. Who was it, Ruben? Do we have a name?
Well, I want to know.
I don't know.
Who is she?
Sources say.
I know, sources say. No, I don't know who exactly. Let me tell you. So I did read an article about maybe 6 months ago. Basically, kind of how it all broke down was when the movie was getting made, there was a casting call, and basically the point of the casting call was they wanted you find like an unknown talent, just like Selena was, kind of started from, a normal life and just like kind of shot up to stardom. They wanted to give somebody else that opportunity, which was the fact that was the reason why they had this huge casting call. And basically when it came down to it, there was apparently this one girl that was good as far as performance, I'm assuming, and personality and looks, probably mostly looks. it was like she was a contender for the family. And then the studios were like, well, Jennifer Lopez, like, we wouldn't have to train her on acting. She, you know, she's a dancer already.
So it's probably more of a liability if they would have went with the unknown, and it would have been more of an investment, more resources.
That sounds like a studio decision.
It does, and that's really interesting. I had no idea. I never knew that fact until today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Jennifer Lopez was like the one that she just. Yeah. They're like that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always kind of thought that too. I guess I never really thought about the politics of it all, but yeah. But I will kind of say like. As far as the way it just ended up, it just worked out. I think because even the girl who was like the runner up, she even said like she can't imagine doing it because she was young at the time, and she's like, I doubt I would have ever done a good job.
What does she do now? Do we know?
I don't even know.
I mean, I think to be honest too, at the same time, I don't know. It would have been fair for a somewhat unknown to carry this.
Yeah.
Because that would essentially made or break her career so early in mimicking someone. You know, it wasn't even like she's portraying, you know, a big character from, you know, a book or anything like that. This was a real life person that was going to have a lot of reactions regardless. You know, it was, you know, even to this day, if someone, you know, goes back and watches it, they can see J-Lo's performance and accept it and feel like to some extent it's as close as you can get. And, you know, J-Lo still continues her success afterwards. But imagine if it was that unknown and it would have been where, at this point, she would have just been like, you only got your fame. You only got to where you're at because of you mimicked someone's life or, you know, in the movie, you depict it. So that's very interesting.
I have really, like, knocked it down to, like,
I totally,
mediocrity.
I totally get where, you know, those that wanted that unknown, that kind of wanted to have a similar experience for that one person. I do think the studio was on the right side of choosing someone with the talent already in place, and it was just more of making sure this movie was delivered as authentic as they can be, rather than trying to give a more uplift story in addition to making this movie, because that's not what the movie was for.
And that would have done. She was, I mean, new. It's not like she was a well-established actress. I mean,
that's true.
I mean,
she
had
been
in.
I mean, people knew who she was.
Yeah. Like she
not everybody, but
she was still new. So technically, it's like you gave somebody an opportunity. Because at the end of the day, like,
I mean,
she had movies like.
I mean, I'm sure she was like B-list, you know. And,
for sure, yeah.
And then or at least still on the rise.
Yeah,
and it's like this helped. Which
Speaking of like studio politics and that, like, you know, behind the scenes stuff, wasn't there like a big uproar because she was Puerto Rican and not Mexican? I remember hearing something about that too.
So apparently people didn't like that she was Puerto Rican, because they said they should have hired a Mexican to do it. I mean, I guess I get the why
like
somebody
the principle
would say that.
of it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not that important, and I mean. And even like in appearance wise, like everybody can look like somebody based off like makeup.
Yeah, that one's different too. Than the white, what do they call it? The color casting and all that. You know, those things that, you know, they say they intentionally, you know, wrote a character that's, you know, black, but they casted a white actor, or an Asian character that was cast by a white. They was cast for, you know, by, well, let me rephrase that. A character that has that kind of Asian culture background, or, you know, is written that way, is portrayed by a white actor. So yeah, I mean, it's very different in that sense, because it's still from, you know, a Spanish culture. It's just a different location of destination.
Yeah, right. And and that's definitely,
but that's like saying, you know, if you cast,
that's like saying this character is Cantonese and you guys casted an Indonesian,
right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I
not saying that that's right or anything. I'm just saying like that's like a comparison.
I get that in that sense, why, you know, you would want someone to represent, you know, who she was from the same place she was.
Right.
But that is really hard when you're making this movie, and the movie essentially is to both, you know, portray her in a well way, but at the same time succeed as a movie, as a business movie. So.
Yeah, and I mean, and I feel like
colorblind casting. That's what
it kind of would have been like. It kind of ended up being like people just had to kind of like suck it up, and I'm glad they did. I mean, I'm glad everybody kind of sucked it up and was like, just wait until it comes out and then make your own judgment. Which, look, like, if they would have, which I doubt they ever would have, but if they would have ever been like, you know what, you're right, let's find somebody else who's actually Mexican in order to portray her, it wouldn't have been the same thing. And it's like, whether she's Mexican or Puerto Rican, at the end of the day, she did a good job. And
Yeah.
that's all that really matters. So,
and then that's not fair to everyone else that can in the sense can portray Selena better than someone that just had the origin of being Mexican.
I think they should be looking at who can portray her the most, like, in the best way. Regardless, I mean, I understand the principle behind it, and she was very big in Mexico and to the Mexican community. So I feel, I can understand why her fans, and they were like, no, it needs to be a Mexican. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I feel like, too, they need to look at it like, we want the best person to portray Selena, like, in the best light. Like, whoever that is, they should just be like, okay, like, even if it's a Puerto Rican, if she can do the job, if she can get this story to appeal to, like, we want everyone to know who Selena is. So I would be thinking
they didn't know,
and they wanted to make sure that they did this right.
Yeah. There was a lot of emotion behind it.
Yes,
probably because it was
the timing.
Well, yeah, I mean,
whitewashing. That was the other word. Now, I'm just now recalling my terms.
They're all coming back
terms
to you
I wanted.
It's like randomly through the episode. Like, that was the word.
Just gonna randomly it just comes to me when you guys continue talking. But this does bring me to actually a point that I wanted to mention, in regards to the movie being made relatively sooner than normal movies that occur for someone, a real life story. Normally, I think one example recently would be like, I Tonya. I'm not that she's dead, but her story is being told years after this event. Years. And there's a lot of similarities. Tupac has some movies that come out. All Eyes on Me. I know that there's been other attempts, but
or like the Aaliyah movie. That wasn't really like a full on movie, but still it barely.
But these movies aren't made so soon.
Like years pass by,
and so a lot of emotions are still running. That's I think the one artist that I can kind of feel like, I mean, not to say that they're similar, but just when they passed away, when Michael Jackson passed away, I don't think I would want to see a movie that soon, like, turn around that quick. And it's not to say that it's like people are still grieving, and it's for someone as big as Selena, it was very hard. It wasn't, it was more than just someone in the media. This was someone that affected personal lives due to her music, which is what music does. So what do you guys think about, was this a good thing that they did this rushed out? I mean, we still see the overall product is still fantastic.
Obviously it was a good thing that they rushed it out, looking back, because, I mean, the movie is still, what it is. Like, it's still, like, memorable. It's still...
Right. So are we saying the success of the movie that it is now, that, we have for it, does that make it, something that moving forward more studios should look into for, situations similar to that? Do you guys feel like this was just a special situation, I guess, in that sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was just a special situation. Because basically why it was because, which kind of happens with a lot of, I don't know, it happens with some people, and it kind of did happen with Michael Jackson. So, like, they die, and then all these people are like, we're going to make a movie, or we're going to write a book, or documentaries, like The Truth, Basically, this is what kind of happened here. Like, all these people kind of came out of the woodwork, and it's like, we're writing biographies, we're going to make documentaries, and there was even movies getting shopped around from, like, third parties. So, unofficial movies, some people just like, we got a script, we're going to make a movie. Literally after she died. So, that's kind of like why her family kind of had to get involved and like, well, these are going to happen anyway, so we might as well like beat them to the punch, and we'll go ahead and do it ourselves. So within weeks of her passing, like they were already in talks, already looking into making a movie. And then probably I think it said by August of that year they announced the movie. So she died in March, and then by August the movie was announced, as far as we're working with Warner Brothers. This was directing it. So it was really fast. I
just feel like, personally, I understand we want everyone to get her story, but I just feel like to hear a studio is rushing to create this movie,
I don't like that. That doesn't really sit well with me, because I feel like it's all about money at that point, and at least that's what I kind of take away from it. Like, I know people want this movie. Whoever dies, like, let's use Michael Jackson. Like, I know people obviously want a Michael Jackson movie, but it feels
And
like
did.
when they do it so directly after the fact, it felt, for me, what I visualize is like a bunch of vultures coming to pick at the carcass. It's like, okay, he's dead now. I'm gonna get the script out before anybody else.
Yeah.
It's not so much about, I was in, Michael Jackson's music touched me in such a way. I'm sure people do feel like that, but it doesn't come off that way when a studio, or when you hear stories about scripts being shopped around 2 months after somebody died or whatever. Like, so I mean,
And
I don't like that, but like I said, for Selena, I'm learning kind of the behind the scenes of that because you're telling me, but it worked, and thankfully it did happen.
I think it's kind of like to give you, I mean, which everybody, I mean, it's no knowledge to kind of give you like a perspective of like the timing. Like this was 95, so I think OJ happened right before, around that time. So this was all about like the sensationalism of like getting the news story out and getting these kind of crazy crimes. Tupac died in 95 too, I think. Didn't he? Or somewhere around there.
I'll fact check one moment.
Things like this were happening. So this kind of was like everything was sensationalized, and the media was like a big thing where people were like, we want the full story.
96, his
96.
death occurred 96.
So around that time all this stuff was happening, and it wasn't out of the ordinary. I think it was just new. So I think that's why maybe now when people die, it might not be that way anymore, where people are like, oh, gotta get on it because all these people are shopping around, like, because it's kind of, I guess stories are just out now, whereas before it was new. It was like, we need to get the story out now and I need to make money off of it, whereas now it's like everything's just kind of out there anyway. So I don't know if it was a right decision or a wrong decision. I think it just ended up working out. I do think it was a right decision to make it based off of the facts that it could have been made by a third party. And therefore, that movie, even if they made this movie later, would have never carried the same weight, because it would be like the Selena movie after the three others. It would have been like, or the movie after the TV series at some other TV, Which, if you look at it, nobody's made like that, like a series or anything like that. Like Jenny Rivera, I don't know.
Jenny or Juan Gabriel.
Rivera. So like she died a couple years ago. She already has like two, like they made an unauthorized kind of like mini series, on her life, and then the family had to come out and do their own. So there's already two, and I'm not saying I didn't watch it. I'm not looking at quality, but it did feel like, well, and obviously that's kind of like for the fans at that point, because it's like this is what the real story is, but it dilutes the story, because by that point, it's the real story, but
you're getting a couple different versions of it too.
Somebody might have already watched the first one, and now it's like, well, what's the point of watching the second one? So like the outside audience would not give it the time. If you didn't enjoy the first one, then why are you going to give the second one a chance? So it just,
or if you did enjoy the first one, you're like, I don't need to see the second one. I already know what happened.
It just dilutes it. So I think it just ended up working out, luckily, in a positive way, but. Circumstances, obviously it was good that it happened based off the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly I don't recall any documentary that kind of was like a go-to for anyone, or like a reoccurring documentary that would be played. Normally when it's irrelevant to her, it's more of the movie discussed more than any kind of TV special, any documentaries, any of that. It's very interesting. I mean, just comparison too. I know like Michael Jackson didn't have a movie made, but he had his his stage that he was trying to produce before its passing.
This is it.
Yeah. So that was more of like, this is what he was working on, more so than this is, So I didn't feel like that in itself didn't feel like a cash grab necessarily. It was just more of like, we missed. This is what we would have had. We were very close to,
like this is what you could have experienced. It was right there. It was tangible,
and it's incomplete. And you see it's incomplete. And like,
I just want to say, since you brought that up, I've watched that a lot of times, and I don't know why it makes me so emotional. And when I can go off on a tangent here, but I get teary eyed every time when they're practicing "Man in the Mirror." Because that song gets me every time I hear it, but when I see it on "This Is It" and they're like practicing, and oh my god, it's just,
and I think
beautiful.
Yeah, I mean not to go too off on that one, but that's all right. It's but like no, in this sense, I think the one thing for Selena is that last performance.
Yeah,
that's the one that's shown the most in addition to other performances. That's the one that's always
at the Houston Astrodome. her final concert.
Sure.
Which it wasn't.
Here's a-
It wasn't, fun fact, but just something else.
Oh, there you go. See,
Right.
Obnoxious.
That I did know.
Yeah.
I didn't.
But
I'm sure listeners are half.
There was other stuff. I mean, there was other, and yeah, there isn't, like you said, there's no other documentaries or things, like you said, everything's kind of, when you hear reference to the story, it's kind of like, it is just referred to the movie, like you said.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was a lot of like books. There are books, like my mom even bought one. And they're actually, another fun fact, they're making that book into a miniseries now. And the like trailer leaked, and it's really, really graphic. Like it's like, because that book was called like Selena's Secret, and it was basically this famous news reporter from Mexican TV, Latin TV. She wrote the book. She went and interviewed her killer, and then kind of made a book about that. And like, this is the truth because she told me. And so she made a book. The book was a bestseller. And now, this came out right after she died. And now, like 2017, 2018, this was made in 2017. It just hasn't been released. I don't know what's going to happen with it. But the trailer did leak, and it's really graphic. And that's when all like the gossip started that she was having an affair, she had plastic surgery, all this crazy stuff, which to this day has never been actually proven. And it really just is stuff that was like trying to just kind of thrown in the dark. There's not really anything to go off of at all. Just letting you know. And I'm not just saying that.
Who was writing this? Was it like someone that was close to her, or someone that had
news reporter?
news
She
reporter?
literally did like her research and interviewed her killer, and then that was how she made a book about it. Like, I interviewed the killer. She told me these people knew these stories. She went to those people, got their stories, and it was just like all these random people.
A collection of
but there was
stories.
all that, which is also an incentive for making that movie. Was like, this is what we want to represent. Like, this is what we want to sit and represent the story and her legacy, which is, it was successful because now,
yes.
like, that's the only thing people think of. All the other stuff's kind of just side things that people might pick up and read or whatever.
I mean,
nothing really sticks like that one did.
For sure. Was there anything you guys wanted to cover about this movie? Any points?
I feel like you need to go.
Any points about the film?
Or anything that you feel like you want to mention?
The whole film's great. If we're talking...
Your favorite scene, maybe?
I can always throw that in there. My favorite scene, hands down, and that whole film is so good, but my favorite scene is when she performs Como la Flor, when they go to Monterrey, Mexico, and they're performing one of her other songs, and then the stage starts collapsing.
Oh,
she's like, the stage is collapsing. Yeah. And then they decide to do Como la Flor, and she's like, well, let's do it, but let's do it slow. And then I love that scene because that is like one of those, that's where it takes you out of this just being a biography, like a biographic film, and it takes you into like you are watching a movie because it slows down. Like as soon as the bass guitar starts playing, and then you get this wide pan shot of the whole audience, and then it focuses in on Jennifer Lopez. And then they start doing all these visual shots, like mirror imagery shots of like Jennifer Lopez, and all these beautiful like things with the just directorial things, and playing with like certain shots, and it's like a kind of movie magic moment, and that's really the only time it really like kind of, I don't want to say it's the only time it does that in that film, but that's one of the times where it does it, and it's beautifully shot, and that's my favorite live performance song of hers, and it's a really great shot, and she's like singing it slow, and then it just crescendos into this beautiful like outpouring of her just singing to this audience, and it's lovely. I don't know what else to say about it. It's my favorite scene, and it's Ruben's least favorite scene.
I did kind of say that. No,
I remember that scene
though.
though.
Thing was my least favorite, and I do admit that it is my least favorite. But you said like what we wanted to add, right? Or are we doing?
Yeah, anything you want to add to it.
Okay, so here's kind of like what I want to add that I guess I want to talk about, which we mentioned, so I just kind of want to elaborate. So you guys were talking about like Donnie was saying how it's like the characters were relatable, and it basically, and I feel like I do feel that too, and that's kind of what makes it appealing to a lot of people. Is like and it kind of goes with the whole Mexican American thing. It's like, well, these people, you could see your family and their family and their struggle, your struggle and their struggle. Kind of, that's kind of what also kind of made Selena as a person, as a performer, like that story was impactful when she was alive, and then it became, the movie just kind of carried it along and spread it to more people. So it's always an impactful story. But like the interesting part, which I mean a lot of people know, but just kind of to reiterate, is like these people, they wanted it to be as authentic as possible. So these actors stayed with the real life counterparts. So like Chris's character, actually, John Seda, he stayed with Chris, and like there's like things that he even said like he was just hanging out with them. They just would literally hang out for days, go shopping together, do whatever they got, like their normal routines. But he said once that like he went into his bathroom, which he was still living in the house, I believe, that him and Selena were living in, and like he just saw like this like note or something, like I think it was a sticky note on the mirror that just said like, "Oh, I love you," blah blah, like Selena and Chris forever, like that she had written, and he just kind of just kept it there. And it was like, he was like, this is like kind of when it got real. Like this was, that's kind of where it became like, this was a real person. This is his real wife. That this was a real relationship that was obviously impactful. And then the same thing with like J-Lo, like obviously since she couldn't spend time with Selena, what she did was she just they have a lot of home videos, which is a part of the authenticity of this film, which again is just kind of sprinkled because this movie is just kind of a compilation of all their stories. Oh my god, it's like 5 different topics that come into one. But basically, this movie was made off a compilation of everybody's stories. They just recorded them telling stories, and then a script is written. And then, so what was sprinkled was like at the part, like the fair scene when they get on the bus and they're recording with their little camera. There is a lot of home videos that they recorded amongst themselves because this was the 80s, 90s. Video cameras were more accessible, so everybody had one, which is why we see documentaries about everybody, and they always have like 90s video cameras. So they had one too, and so that is like with that one scene that kind of just lets you know like it's kind of like that was an authentic part that was sprinkled in a scene, but it really was a big thing in their lives. Like there is lots of home videos, which then provided J-Lo with the source material to be able to look at, because these home videos, some of them haven't even been released ever shown or anything, because these are their personal home videos that they hold on to because they kind of want to keep something to themselves as well. These are personal like home videos as far as like them on the bus just chit-chatting. Like her sister would just like, they would just sit there and like talk on the video camera. And there's like even this one little like scene that they showed when they had like it was called the Selena Vive, like it was 10 years after she passed away. They had this big concert. They showed like this one little like chunk of Selena just like talking to the video camera. And it seemed like a pretty, like maybe a 94, 95, probably, you can tell she was like, she looked like what she looked like before she passed away, so that age, because this all started obviously when she was younger. So that provided a lot of source material, so they had a lot of home videos, and I don't know if people really get the extent of that, like, there was a lot of home videos. But like, her sister said, like, one time, they were just kind of hanging out, and that she went over to her bed, and I guess she had something like at the end of her bed, like a little couch or a little kind of seat, and she basically like went to that seat. J-Lo did when she was staying with her, because she also stayed with her sister, and just like she like laid down, like threw her feet up the same way Selena did, like grabbed the same blanket, wrapped herself exactly the same way that Selena did, without ever even knowing it. So I think that kind of tells like, in a way, it's kind of like this was kind of like meant to be, kind of like it was. They just picked the right person, the right time, and like all the situation just kind of ended up working out where she really embodied, Selena, and that probably wasn't even something intentional or ever, but it just was the right person that probably had the right characteristics or whatever. But that always sticks with me, because that kind of like, it kind of gives you, like, me as like a fan, kind of the reassurance that they're like, this was legit. Like, even we, being her own family, saw that this girl was like so much like her, and she really like was the right person to play her. So it was just very authentic, and I'm glad that that's kind of something that was able to stick around. Was they were relatable just like they were in real life, and that's what people kind of carry with them.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly couldn't relate to the relatability in the sense of like, I did see like my family in similar scenes in that sense of like, oh, we probably would be some very similar in how we talk to each other and how it was more of like, it felt real, as you were saying, authentic. And I did appreciate that watching the movie. So I can definitely understand that. Absolutely. I think the biggest thing I wanted to talk about, probably because it's why the movie was made, was the death. The movie doesn't necessarily show it. It gives you the part of where it occurs and, her shooter, which was also her manager. It gives you all those. It sets it up necessarily in that sense. And they just cuts to her getting her manager getting arrested. Do you guys feel that obviously at the time it would have been too sensitive to actually depict her being killed, but do you feel like as you look back, do you feel like the movie, if it had it, would have been a better way for her entire like story and that tragic end like moment depicted, would have been better to be depicted with it? Or do you guys like that you guys don't need to know how she was murdered, you guys just need to know when it occurred, I guess would be the better?
I might feel differently because I mean I'm not like a diehard Selena fan or didn't grow up really listening to her music, but just as an audience member and just as seeing a film about this superstar and like learning about her, I personally didn't need to see a graphic depiction of how like the bullet entering her chest or whatever, like I didn't need to see it. Like we got it. You get what happens. I think it was laid out, and maybe some people want to see that, but I think the way it portrayed it was, I wouldn't have changed anything about it. And
I mean, because it's definitely graphic, and for a lot of people, Selena is an idol for her success and what she was able to go through and still, achieve that amount. So to see that, it's very different when it's a real life person too. For like fictional characters, yes, you want to see that, kind of struggles and pain that they go through and to know that they are just like you still. Yeah. But yeah, when
I
real
think
life
it's different
figures,
if this was a fictional movie.
Right, exactly.
Then I would have been like, they didn't even show her die. But because this is it's a real life person, but B, she's so beloved and so adored, and so it's like it kind of I walked away kind of feeling like I feel like it was more respectful and more tasteful that they didn't necessarily put this graphic scene in it, because I don't think it was necessary.
I remember,
and I think it was just as just seeing the scenes of like the actors in the hallway hospital and the doctor coming out and saying she's dead, like that whole scene, like that whole ending is like so heart-wrenching to watch, and like just that was enough. And then that's when it goes, like after that it goes into you seeing all her fans at like this candlelight vigil. And so I think like I just don't think it was necessary at all, but Ruben may have a different opinion.
Right before you get into that, Ruben, I do want to say, because I remember seeing, I just don't know exactly like what it was for, but it was like another like attempt to make the story of her, and they actually showed that scene as she's like running out of the motel, like, and she's like leaving a streak of blood. And when I saw that, I was like, I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
I don't, I understand, what happened. I know the story, but I don't visually want to see that.
Yeah.
So I personally think that the decision to not include her actual death, in the sense of like, the manager walking up to the
fan club president, right?
Yeah, I was a fan club president.
Oh, yeah. Fan club president. Probably had a lot of tweets on that one. Excuse me. But yeah, so like all that, I don't think I would have want to see it. I can see that working well in a movie, to get that kind of dramatic moment, but I personally feel like it benefited to leave that out of it. Even today, even if they made the movie today, like if they did a remake, if you want to say,
yeah,
I don't feel like they still should include that.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way too. I feel like that kind of that topic was exhausted as far as that at that point. Like people couldn't really say like, well, what happened? Because if you really wanted to know, there was, you just had to watch TV or read a newspaper or, read a book about it, because it tells you everywhere. Like, it's not a mystery. So I feel like it was the right decision. And when you look at the movie as a whole, if that would have been in there, I feel like that would have just been extra drama that deterred from the story and the impact of the message, which the message was like, you know, somebody happy, everything's going her way, you know, success is coming, and then something bad happens, and then like, and that's the legacy you leave. If that would have been put there, it kind of would have disrupted that kind of I don't know how to, like, it wouldn't have driven the story home. I don't feel like it would have definitely kind of derailed the story, and it would have kind of been hard to, like, it would have ended up just being like, oh, that was sad, you know. I feel like it would have been one of those things, like, that was just sad, you know, and that's the end, and that's it. And I feel like the way it ended now, I mean, because it kind of brought it back, it kind of was like you're left on a higher note as opposed, I mean, as far as the story, and you're left on a higher note, like, oh, that's where she was, this is where her legacy is now, and that's it, you know. I mean, you don't leave being like, oh wow.
Yeah, it definitely would have changed the whole tone of how you left the theater. Like, you kind of leave sad, but you still leave on a high, like what you're saying. This is the legacy she left behind. Oh my God, she impacted so many people. You leave with those thoughts. So I feel like, so it's kind of like it's a bittersweet high, whether, or as opposed to if we would have seen her being gunned down, that just would have been like so tragic to watch. And then I would have left the theater like with kind of a bad taste in my mouth. We know that's what really happened. But once again, like Ruben was saying, if you really, really don't know what happened, if you've been living under a rock, then you can go find out what happened.
And I feel like
the movie did a good. I mean, they depicted it. They had all the news, audio, and you know, kind of narrating what happened. You get what happened.
Yeah, and I feel like mentally, it just kind of like something like that in any movie, just kind of like, it's like that's the end, and you kind of just like in your mind, you kind of just close it, like that was the end of the movie, and then you're done. Like, you don't really want to think about it, like think about the movie or the storyline. So I think that, like we're saying,
absolutely. I mean,
the tone,
and the thing is also, the movie wants to leave a story of how they got to where they are, more so than how they died. Yeah. So I definitely feel like the movie, on the as you guys mentioned, does leave it on that note. Well, you still feel like you can have the same success. You know, you see her when she's young. She doesn't really, you know, she's not that interested, but she grows and she works on her talent with her father and her brother and sister. And you just feel like that still gives that optimistic approach. And I think that with all, you know, artists or celebrities, you mainly want to know how they got to where they were, more so than how their ending occurred.
Yeah.
So that's definitely what the movie did. The movie was a celebration of how Selena got to where she was at that point. Definitely, for sure. Did you guys want to give her a real score?
5 out of 5.
Well, I was gonna say favorite scenes, but he already did.
Oh, you haven't mentioned it. My favorite scene. I mean, I really like her concert performances, which is kind of like a double-edged sword, because it wasn't the actual performance, but that's what. But I enjoyed
watching.
Yeah, I mean, and I liked her when she was young, and her father was just like, "No, you're playing. No, you're doing this," but not necessarily as a scene that it stood out. I just felt like those were like things that were very relatable, you know, especially me growing up, and my parents always saying, "No, you're doing this. Go do your homework." It was that kind of like feeling as well. But in terms of scene that I personally want to always go back and see are her performances, because I was always mesmerized by her performance and her music. Her music really is just amazing. Actually, you know, the thing is, aside from the hits, I actually don't know her entire album. Like, I only know the hits from the music. Does the disapproval.
Oh, same. I'll admit that too. I don't know any other music other than what was in the film, maybe with the exception of like 1 or 2 songs, and I don't even know what they're called. But yeah, same. But,
and I didn't know, this was on, I found out later growing up, that she didn't speak Spanish that well. Like, it wasn't like her main language, and I was like, oh, I'm just like her in that sense, because Spanish is not my primary. But there's like that, I don't want to say assumption. It's just like, oh, you speak Spanish? And it's just like, yes. And it's assumed like, oh, then you're fluent. And it's like, no, I'm not. So I definitely, when I found that out, I was like,
made it more relatable, huh?
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, it kind of just drives home the idea of like, I guess that kind of drives home the whole success part of it too. It's like, she she made it big singing in Spanish, never in English. I mean, and she was barely starting to get the English stuff going before she passed away. But then, like, she was successful in Spanish with barely knowing it to start off with. She just kind of learned the words and sang them. And then she kind of self-taught herself by the end, because eventually she did want to know, she didn't want to communicate in Spanish because she just didn't, she wanted to know what she was saying, and she wanted to know how to say it. And that is a thing that people say a lot, is like whenever she would do Spanish interviews, she'd always kind of beat herself up, or like ask them like, was that okay, or was that word right, or if she said a word wrong, like, oh, what's the word? Like, she was really interested in learning, and she did speak it. I mean, she spoke it fluently to an extent. Like, she had a little bit of an accent, but nothing crazy. But I mean, it says a lot that you self-taught yourself as an adult to speak Spanish when you never knew it to begin with, and you lived in America your whole life, never speaking Spanish, just singing it and just learning the words. So I mean, and that says a lot too. And yeah, I guess the movie kind of gives you that too. I mean, I don't know if the movie kind of, is that how you found out she didn't know?
Yeah, I mean, that was just discussion of the movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw the parts where it was like a struggle, but I thought it was just like the spotlight and that kind of, more so than like she didn't really know Spanish. Part of it was like, well, this is J-Lo performing. Maybe J-Lo didn't know. Like, that was more of the factors that came in.
And the only scene that I guess really tells you is that press conference in Mexico. But then I guess, like, if you're in America...
when she was a child...
that too, I guess.
When she said, I don't even like songs in Spanish. I don't know Spanish.
Yeah.
She said it when she was a child.
Yeah, but I took that as she was just young. Like, your parents have just probably even kicked that in.
Yeah, and then I guess... Yeah, I guess those are the only two scenes that really address that, because obviously it's a movie in English, so it's like you expect it to be in English,
right?
And it's not like it's not like they spoke Spanish around the house, like they were all English.
Exactly,
speaking,
yeah. But wait, what's your favorite scene?
Oh, my favorite scene. So my favorite scene, which I guess is not probably a popular one, but my favorite scene is that part when they're shopping in the mall, like when they're at the store, and just like
for the Grammy dress.
Yeah, when she's just messing around like with her cousin and stuff. I think that was her cousin or her friend. I need to fact check that. But
the fact checker has to fact check.
I should know this.
Donnie, do you know? Because you knew some of the trivia that I was asking.
I don't know that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that was just her friend.
I'll never forgive myself. I think it was her cousin. Or maybe her cousin was in real life. I don't know. But yeah. So I like that part when she's just kind of messing around, because I feel like that's one of the only scenes. It is sprinkled throughout, but I feel like that's one of the only scenes that really like captures her personality, like that joking kind of personality, and it is sprinkled around in different instances, but that kind of like zeroes in on like, this is what she was like as an everyday person, just at the mall, just shopping, talking to people, and again, I guess I like that scene because it's like, I enjoy, obviously the real Selena. I love watching her interviews and all that kind of stuff. I think that was part of the appeal, was just her as a human being was the appeal, aside from her singing abilities and all that. So yeah, and I feel like that's one of the only scenes that kind of captures that. And then it just goes in, you have her messing around, and then you have the whole like interaction with the sales lady, and then you have the whole interaction with the Selena está aquí kind of thing, and then it shows her with the fans, and then that, so like literally that whole mall scene kind of encompasses her, like, this is what she was like off the stage as a regular person, how she would treat her fans, how she would be with other people, and that was I feel like that was very accurate, and that was a great way to kind of show you and give you like kind of like a rest from like her on stage or her dealing with music stuff, and it kind of like, this is her as a person. And so yeah.
Speaking of, I know I already said my scene. I'm not going to go into detail about another favorite scene, but I am going to kind of mention another favorite scene really quickly, when they're on the tour bus and they're riding Como la Flor on the bus, and then she goes into Susie's cabinet and gets her chips.
Yeah.
And like, she's like, I'm eating Susie's chips. And then they're like, starts throwing them around.
Yeah.
I love that scene and how it just goes directly into them on stage performing.
Yeah.
That's always been one of my other favorite scenes. Like, it goes from such a sort of homey, very personal, playful, goofy, and then, but beautifully just transitions into them like hitting their marks on stage.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great.
It's
I'd go more into detail, but I already kind of used my time up. So
you had your coupon. You used your coupon.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is just, there's a lot of those scenes just are weird to kind of think and put yourself in that place of like, wow, these people really, like, their home was being on a bus, and they were just literally normal, like, us just being on a bus and like, oh, gotta go perform. Like that was their life.
That's another thing that I remember too.
Yeah.
Was that like her and like sitting on her mom's lap and just talking about life. Yeah, those things. Yeah,
that
right.
was their life, which is so weird. That like them going on stage, and that's the thing. Like side note, sorry, I don't want me to go on a tangent, but that's the thing. Like even now, they say like her sister and her brother, like nobody understood the magnitude of the impact that they had. Nobody, because all they were doing was literally like going to work. That was all they did. So even when she like right before she passed away, even a lot of stuff wasn't taken into account or wasn't documented or anything like that, because I mean in some circumstances, because they were just doing their job, and some of the things they don't even remember, like did we play this song, did they not, because they would just go roll with the punches. Like they just went to work, did what they did, enjoyed themselves up on stage, got off, went home, and did what they got to do. And that's so weird that like the outside world was seeing them being like, wow, this is crazy. And they were winning awards, lots of awards, but even say even with those awards, even with everything, nobody ever really understood until she passed away. Nobody understood how many people they were reaching. They just were doing their job and nobody got it until she passed away and everything kind of stopped. And people started coming to them. Then they're like, oh wow, all these people were actually watching us and listening to us this whole time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy how you can never get that magnitude until like the end.
I have to go watch this movie now because I'm playing it in my head and I'm like, oh, it's not been so long since I've last seen it, but it's time. It is time for a Selena tune-up.
Wow.
But okay, so I just cover our scores. I mean, we don't have to go into details. I think it's pretty there.
Mine's is 5 out of 5.
Mine's a 5 out of 5 too.
I haven't seen it enough times to really get a score. The last time I seen it was probably like early 2010-ish. It's been a while. My score, from what I recall, it's just based off everything that that I'm seeing. I feel like it was right about. I would say honestly, it's about 4.5. But more of a movie standpoint than her act, like a critique on her life of like, that wasn't real. It wasn't necessarily that, there was things that didn't feel right or didn't feel real. I just felt like it was more alongside the pacing and stuff, those kinds of little things that I felt were done in a way that impact my viewing of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I will admit when I was watching it, I was intrigued, but it wasn't one of those movies that I was hooked on from the beginning and, I lost time. It was like it was kind of like, okay, I feel like I am getting to the middle.
You just said we weren't going to go into detail about our real scores. So basically, Donnie and Ruben don't go into detail, but let me go into detail about why I'm giving it a 4.5.
I'm just justifying why mine is different than your guys' score. That's all. But
they did give it a 4.5.
I'm sure there are people that's like, why? I'm answering the question that wasn't asked.
I'm just saying, that's what you stated. You said we're not going to go into detail, but it's fine. Thank you for clarifying.
But yes, so everyone that hasn't seen it, if you haven't, definitely check it out. It is on iTunes. It is on every digital.
You have to go see it.
You can buy the DVD.
If you haven't seen it, please go see this film.
Come on.
For sure.
Just so you can just love it.
And if you
you can just love it with us.
Yeah, just love it with us.
Wow. Watch it again. Now that you know these fun facts.
Yeah.
That's true. There was a lot that we threw at it.
Or watch YouTube. Go on YouTube. There's like behind the movie kind of videos on there, real Selena videos. Watch all that. Expand your Selena knowledge.
So don't watch the movie. Watch her.
Just either way, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
Ruben just doesn't. As long as it's Selena related,
Ruben gives.
It could be Selena Gomez. It could be anything Selena.
Wow. But everyone, definitely share your thoughts. We want to hear your guys' favorite scenes, your guys' thoughts on the impact and everything we talked about. Let us know if there's something that we missed that maybe would have been a great thing to discuss. We want to hear all that. And we also want to kind of put out a request here. If anyone is interested in joining us for an episode discussion of a movie coming out in the near future, definitely communicate with us through one of our social media outlets. We would love to set it up, have an additional special guest.
Could be anyone who, if you just enjoy listening to a podcast, if you have a podcast yourself, maybe want to collaborate.
Exactly.
Anything, anyone.
Yes. And
no qualifications.
We'll set up.
If there's a desire, if there's a will, there's a way.
If you just really want us to talk to you, Like,
If you just want someone to listen.
if you want us to say random sentences, I've seen that on YouTube videos when they're like those like one of them is the honest trailers, and then at the end they're like, please say, and they just say like random sentences. If you want us to do that, we'll do that.
Yes, we will.
But yeah, if you guys are interested, we definitely would love to collaborate with anyone. Just contact us one of those social media outlets. We'll be in touch. We'll set up what movie. Yeah,
We'll work it out.
we'll work it out. We'll be more
Just
than
let
happy
us
to.
know.
We'll talk. Real talk. Realist talk.
On the Reel-ists Podcast.
Let's drop the mic. But thank you everyone for listening.
Thanks, guys.
See you next time.